You're listening to the Liberty Lighthouse Podcast.
So welcome to the show. Now we have Ed Danko. Ed Danko running for city council in Palm Coast, Florida. Website votedanko.com. But what I find more impressive is Ed is a Navy veteran, like me. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. I still serve my country as an officer in the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I'm proud to do it.
I was just going to mention that, too. And you're also involved in a whole bunch of social programs.
I am a member of the Kiwanis Club here in our city of Palm Coast. I'm also on the board of directors of our Trump Club here in the city of Palm Coast.
Trump Club. I had actually never heard of Trump Club until I was looking at your website.
There's a lot of Trump Club clubs. They're all across the country. They support President Trump. That's what we do here. We just all opened up an office, a campaign office, to take us all the way through November. If you were here in Palm Coast, you can come visit our office. But in your own city, I'm sure you may find a Trump Club. I suggest you show up for their meetings and you support their efforts, because they're out there to elect our president to a second term.
That's after the coronavirus lockdown is over and we're allowed to go out again.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it. I mean, I have absolute confidence under our president and under his leadership and under the quick way he jumped on top of this. Unlike Obama, when he dealt with a little flu virus, he waited until 1,000 people died before him and Joe Biden even woke up. President Trump, he closed our borders. He's taking care of our economy. Today, the Senate just passed a bill. They're going to be passing more bills to help every single American. And make no mistake, this is America. We will get through this, and there'll be no better president to lead us back from this crisis than Donald Trump.
Well, I wanted to start out by saying thank you for all of your community service, both at the national level and local level. But why we have you here today is your previous career. Your career in broadcasting. You worked for NBC, CBS, and CNN, all on news programs. Isn't that right?
When I got out of the Navy, I worked briefly for the show Entertainment Tonight, and that took me to Washington, D.C., and then I went to work for NBC Nightly News. When Roger Mudd and Tom Brokaw co-anchored, I was based in Washington. I went from there to the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. I spent 10 years in Washington, D.C. I was the editor of Face the Nation with Leslie Stahl and Bob Schieffer. Then I was moved around from various domestic bureaus. I was also in the Soviet Union for the fall of communism. I've covered a lot of things all around the world with CBS. And then I went to the headquarters of fake news, CNN in Atlanta, where I spent 8 years. And finally, 2016, November 1st, I had enough. 2 weeks earlier, I went to my bosses. I said, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm leaving. Here's my 2-week notice. I knew I would never get promoted further there because they knew I was a conservative, and I knew I couldn't do my job because they're not just anti-Trump. They were anti-telling you the whole story. If it didn't support Obama or Hillary Clinton, it wasn't getting on the air. And they didn't care about the truth. They only cared about their political agenda. And I just had enough, and I finally just said, that's it. And November 1st, 2016, I walked out.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Today we were together in the Liberty Lighthouse. We're discussing the obvious bias that is in the news media. Every channel, every program seems to have a bias, most of them leaning to the left. One might lean to the right. Fox News, of course, being the exception for the left leaning.
Yeah, that's true. And I can tell you, I think CNN and MSDNC or LSD or MSNBC, whatever you want to call it, they're all also very, very hard left, obviously. But CNN, it is so anti-Trump. All you got to do is turn it on for 5 minutes and you can see what they do. They blame President Trump for everything.
Obviously, the first thing President Trump did that became widely known was ban travel from anybody who had been to China within the last 14 days. The travel restrictions that he had put in on January 31st, when everybody called him a racist for doing it.
Trump took action. He took it quick. We cut off allowing people into this country, first from China, and then it expanded. And now we've closed the Canadian border even. And this is the right thing to do, without a question of a doubt. And this is why our country has so few cases compared to a lot of other parts of the world, because this president took action. Again, unlike Obama, when we had that last virus, 1,000 people died before Obama even declared a national emergency.
Yeah, I think that one was SARS.
SARS virus. Yeah, that SARS virus, and the Obama administration, you know, with Obama, with Joe Biden, who wants to lead us, you know, basically sat on their hands. And yet this president is taking actions, but yet today, during the briefing that the president gave, we saw some liberal reporter in the White House briefing room, you know, ask a very stupid question. She wanted to know, she said that somebody in the White House was calling it the Kung Fu flu. And the president said, who? And she didn't know. And he says, well, who's the person? You're saying someone on my staff is saying this? And she says, well, I don't know who it is. And then the president said, well, if you don't know who it is, how do you know it happened? And she just said, well, somebody on the White House staff said it. And he again said, who? And she couldn't answer the question. And he said, well, look, the flu came from China, okay? Next question, please. Let's move on. And that's, you know, the example of fake news. And what these folks do is they take something, they make it up, you know, they try to blame the White House, they try to blame the president, they don't have any facts for it, but yet they try to push it out there rather than focusing on the serious situation that we are now dealing with. And we have lots of businesses shutting down and people losing their jobs, and we have much more important things to worry about than some reporter saying, oh, you called it the Kung Fu flu, which actually never happened. But that, again, is the anti-Trump media.
Right. And what I just recently pointed out on Twitter, like where were all of these woke people who think that the phrase Chinese virus or Wuhan flu are racist? Where were they 5 years ago when MERS was the term being used for the bad bug going around? MERS, which stands for Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. Nobody called that one racist, and everybody used that phrase.
Yeah, exactly. Facts are not going to get in the way of what they consider to be a good story.
Right, and that's the question I wanted to get to. Like, even before President Trump, it was this way. This is not new because of Trump.
Kind of started during the Reagan administration. Not to this degree, but there were a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats that were incredibly upset when Jimmy Carter lost to President Reagan. And you can go back and pull it up on YouTube and look at election night coverage on the three major networks, and you're going to see that. But now it's gotten to an extreme that I've never seen in my life before.
So what's the impetus? Why is the question that I have for anybody that's been inside, my insider question is it because it's an echo chamber and you're surrounded by so many people of the same mindset that it just feeds on itself? Or is it because, you know, the owners and leadership of the networks want to push an agenda? Is it because, I don't know, the Democrats give them money? Is it, why does the media lean so far left?
And that's an incredibly good question, and it comes from several different areas, so it may take a moment for me to go through them here. But number one, yes, starting with the leadership. And if you look at CNN as an example, Jeff Zucker, you know, the president of CNN News, he's incredibly liberal, and he hates Donald Trump. So it starts at the top with Jeff Zucker at CNN, and every morning we have a briefing in the morning. It's a conference call. It's to set the day's agenda. And Jeff would set the anti-Trump agenda. And that's exactly what he did when I was there, and I'm sure that's exactly what he's still doing. So it starts from the leadership. It also starts from the fact that a lot of the older journalists are no longer there. They've been bought out. They've been pushed out. Forced retirement, buyouts, whatever you want. A lot of the old pros are gone. Those folks are all gone now. So they're hiring a bunch of kids out of college that have come to us from liberal professors and universities that show up and they have an agenda. Now for the networks, it's great because they're paying these kids nothing compared to what they used to pay. And these kids show up brainwashed and they're ready to do whatever they're told. And one of the things I did at CNN my last couple of years, before I walked out, one of the things I did was I would train new producers. And so I'd get these kids right out of college that were hired, and they would immediately tell me that they wanted to cover certain social type stories. They wanted to be the global warming person or whatever. And they had an agenda, that their college professors, had told them they should be doing. My professor said that we have a social agenda here, that we have to take care of the world, that we have to take care of people because people aren't capable of making their own decisions. I would hear this from these kids. And then of course, you also mentioned the fact that people in that environment, they kind of feed off of each other. There's a lot of elitists that work in the media, and these are folks that think they're brighter, smarter, better than anyone else.
What about just sheer business sensationalism? Like, you run a story just because it'll get attention, regardless of whether or not it's true or whether it's been checked or anything.
Oh, sure. That's definitely an issue and definitely a problem because, networks live on ratings. So, you get into a frenzy. And right now we're seeing a frenzy with this virus, where as a producer every day, you better show up with a story that can feed off of this frenzy or you may be out of a job. But it's not just this virus. You can go back to, things like hands up, don't shoot. That was another example of feeding off of a frenzy. And even though it was a false story, even though it wasn't factual, it didn't matter. The facts didn't matter. People were just scrambling to get this garbage on television because, back then it made the police look bad.
I can't believe how often, even after a story is proven false, it lives. It keeps getting referenced and keeps getting air, even though it's been debunked.
And even if it's not true. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ed Danko, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for your service to country, your service to your community, and now good luck on your bid to continue your community service on a political level. Palm Coast City Council, votedanko.com if you'd like to reach out and help Mr. Ed Danko in his campaigning.
And I'd like to leave you with two things. If you like where I stand, when you go to my website, click on that issues tab. You'll see a lot of my positions. I'm a member of the NRA. I support gun rights. I want to make our county here in Florida, our Flagler County, I want to make us a Second Amendment sanctuary county. But if you like what you see about me, don't be shy. You can click on that donation tab. I will take your donations. And the other thing I'd like to say, I'm also a big supporter of animals. All of our pets, our dogs and our cats are all rescued. I want people to remember your best friend is waiting for you at a shelter. So go rescue a pet. You'll be glad you did.
Very nice. Ed Danko, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ed Danko, ladies and gentlemen. And even if you don't live in his jurisdiction and you can't vote for Ed, well, we need to support candidates in other jurisdictions that believe the same things that we believe, that are there to support our liberties.
Thanks for listening to the Liberty Lighthouse podcast. Be sure to sign up at liberty-lighthouse.com.